Welcome back, everyone. You're seeing video from the IDF showing this huge Hamas tunnel in the northern Gaza Strip. They say it goes underground some 50 meters. It appears to be wide enough for vehicles to pass through, and it stretches more than 2.5 miles. IDF forces say the tunnel does have ventilation and electricity, and it comes as Egyptian sources say both sides, Israel and Hamas, are open to a truce, but obstacles remain to make that happen. I want to welcome in Israeli government spokesperson Tal Heinrich, who's been giving us breaking updates on this war. Also joining the panel, retired Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schaefer, who's ready to talk about attacks on U.S. bases. Tony's also the president of Project Sentinel. Welcome to you both.
Thank you for having me on, Jen.
Absolutely. So, Tony, this latest tunnel discovery, a lot different than the others. We know there's a network down there. Usually these tunnels are narrow, they're low, but this one has shafts, it has electricity and weapons. A vehicle could drive through, they say. What does this latest tunnel show the IDF in their ground offensive against Hamas? What do you make of this discovery and what it means for the hostages that are still in Hamas captivity and how we move forward in this war?
Well, the hostages, Jen, I think are problematic. I think this indicates that the system of clandestine conveyances available to Hamas was significant. They've been moving these folks around, and it's difficult for the IDF to get ahead of it. They're doing everything they can. And this also indicates the wasted resources that the international community has given to the Gaza Strip and Hamas. Think about this, the amount of manpower, physical labor, the resources that went into this that should have been there to benefit the Palestinian people. Instead, it was built in this hideous underground facility designed to essentially create success for the Hamas fighters. The IDF is doing a masterful job of finding these things, pouring seawater into it, much like the Egyptians did in a previous conflict. They're winning, and because they're winning, I think that's why there's now talk of Hamas reaching out through the Egyptians, calling for another truce. If Hamas wants truce, release all the hostages, and I think the Israelis may be willing to talk. Just maybe, but I doubt it.
Tal, just in responding to Tony there, how likely do you think that is to happen as we look at these further negotiations to release hostages? And how is the Israeli government responding to this massive tunnel that's been uncovered?
So, Jen, Tony, the Israeli government will continue to pursue every possible avenue to bring about the release of more hostages. But we should keep in mind that the only reason as for why we have seen the release of some hostages so far is because of the massive military pressure that we exerted on Hamas. So the two goals that we have defined for this war that Hamas has dragged us into, they go hand in hand. We want to eliminate the Hamas terrorist regime and bring about the release of all hostages. You know, there are people there. They have been suffering for more than 2 months. We're hearing horrendous accounts from the hostages who came back. I personally can't stop thinking about 25-year-old Noah Argamani, who's still there. She was abducted by Hamas terrorists from the Nova Music Festival in Re'im in the south, and her mother is dying of cancer. So every moment, every minute counts. And we will do whatever it takes to bring them home.
Indeed. And we're watching news, of course, today that U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin is in Tel Aviv speaking to the Israeli government on how to transition from obviously this major offensive to what the U.S. is calling a more limited campaign. Tony, what do you think will be the outcome of these conversations? Obviously, Netanyahu has really held a firm stance that they will not stop until Hamas is removed from power, until Hamas is eradicated. What do you think the response will be?
The same as when Jake Sullivan tried this about 10 days ago. No, the Israelis should not stop. They actually have the upper hand. They're actually doing it with precision. Look, they're doing it the hard way, but the effective way, room to room. An IDF soldier took a hand grenade to the face last week. I've been in those conditions, Jen. It's tough to shoot and fight, and yet these guys are doing it in such a way to actually limit the loss of innocent life. So the Israelis are doing it right, and I'm sorry, I know Lloyd Austin. I worked for him when he was a brigadier general. He needs to step out of the way and allow the Israelis to do what's necessary to end Hamas and do it the way they need to do it now.
Tal, I want to get your reaction to this as well, because we do see the left, Democrats, the far left, really pushing this administration to push Israel for a ceasefire, to push them to pull back a little bit more. And obviously, we still have these hostages. The clock is ticking. We don't know what's happening to them. We're hearing from hostages that have been released about the situations they were in and their concerns for those who are left behind. What do you make of these conversations that are happening today?
First, we should keep in mind that there is no daylight between Jerusalem and Washington in what pertains to the goals that we have defined to this war. Again, to eliminate the Hamas terrorist regime, we all want to see the hostages back. And as we operate on the ground in Gaza, we also want to minimize the civilian suffering on the Palestinian side and civilian casualties, of course. We don't want to see any casualty. But even the most justified wars in history have seen casualties. And the IDF is doing really going to unprecedented extent to try to minimize them. And we have seen a decreasing trend since we moved southwards and operated in the area of Khan Yunis, where we are massively operating right now. Again, we are in line with our best friends in Washington. We are thankful for the Biden administration and the sweeping bipartisan support that we have received so far. And for the American people, you are our best friends. You know how to tell right from wrong and good from evil. And the American people, they know that Israel is fighting the pure evil here called Hamas. And until this pure evil is gone, there cannot be a better hope for this future.
I think
for the future of the region, rather.
Yeah, I think many hope to see a tougher stance from this administration going forward as well. Tal Heinrich and Tony Shaffer, always a pleasure to have you both with us. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jen.